Davey says 0-6 firm games, but importantly 2 have been cup finals and 1 a league decider. We haven't won any of them. I can't get behind the manager who's responsible for that. Cammy chimes in with, even though we have slightly improved the last few weeks, Clement still has to go. If you can't beat Celtic, you can't manage Rangers. A pretty simple equation. What do you guys think of
that? I don't think Clement's out of the woods. And you can tell that from the Rangers fans' reactions. As you said, a lot of the Rangers fans aren't having him, and are really concerned that the gap, and Clement made a big issue yesterday, didn't he, after the game, of saying that the gap's sort of minimal between Celtic and Rangers. That's kind of what he's got to say, but again, it doesn't fool anybody. Rangers fans know. Yes, Rangers made a game of it, a real competitive cup final, and it made for a thrilling watch for all concerned. But you're kidding no one if you're trying to tell them there's not a gap between Rangers and Celtic. There's a huge gap, and it's a systemic gap. It's all the way up to the top of the club. It doesn't just involve the manager and his players. There's a huge gap between the two clubs right now. Clement's got to say the right things and try to convince people that he's in the thick of a fight. I'm far from convinced. That all said, the progress he's made over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been stark, impressive. I keep coming back to it. I don't know if he's done it by luck, accident or design, but it's happened. Rangers look better. They look a far more dangerous side in the final third than they did previously. Probably not coincidental that Cyril Dessers has come out the firing line, but there you are. What it does do is it sets up a really interesting derby on January the 2nd, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think Clement's out of the woods yet, because see if he goes into that game and gets beat at Ibrox at home and falls further behind Celtic at the top of the league, he's going to have a real tough sell in his hands, try to convince the Rangers supporters that he's still the man best qualified for the job.
Aye, I agree. I think, listen, I think we sat in here after the United draw, and Clement looked done, looked a goner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only thing that saved him at that point was the kind of vacuum, the power vacuum.
Yeah, there was nobody to sack him.
Nobody to sack him. I think if he'd been gone at that point, nobody would have been surprised. I think from that point to this, the transformation has been incredible, really. I mean, it's that last half a dozen games, the turnaround has been huge. I thought they were terrific against Spurs the last week, really good against Nice. Massive change. I thought they played well at Hampden, but I think there's a few caveats as well. I think Celtic didn't play well. Mm-hmm. I think Rangers played to perhaps close to their best. Celtic were nowhere near the best. So that we're talking about the gaps and all that stuff. I think Celtic have got gears there.
I've been his critic, Mick, right? But even I will say to that one, I think you're right. Celtic weren't at it. I don't think they've been at it since November time when they were at their peak. But I do think a lot of that has to go down to the way that Rangers imposed their game on Celtic, and it stopped them playing through Callum McGregor, and it gave them different problems. And I think so that is actually a tick in the Clement box.
I agree to an extent, but I don't know if that way of playing against Celtic is going to work longer term.
Yeah,
I think it works in a wild and wet windy day at Hampden. I think giving Celtic the ball and saying, right, we'll try and win it an hour half and then break, give the ball to Charlie and break and try and get turnovers and score. That's what the first goal came about.
Yeah.
I think relying on Celtic being sloppy isn't a game plan. I think any time on the game in Hampden on Sunday, when Celtic did find their level and hit their gears, they put Rangers under a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. And it buckled them, to be honest. I mean, 3 times it buckled Rangers. Mm-hmm. When Celtic got it together and got the passing going and got the speed going, Rangers couldn't cope. When Celtic were sloppy...
The first two goals really weren't Celtic at full tilt doing Celtic things.
Not quite, but...
It's a deflected shot.
But that period of time, from that missed chance, the 4 against 1, the pressure was building, the goal was coming, Kyle got a chance before that, it's building and building. So they can pressure building, the movement is quicker, the passing is sharper, and Rangers couldn't cope with it. Intensity. Rangers caused problems when Celtic gave the ball away. Mm-hmm. So if your game plan is to force turnovers in that part of the pitch, and it works, it's good. But if you run into Celtic when they do find their levels,
They'll play through
that's not going to work.
They'll play through you.
They'll play through you, and it happened. They'll force defensive mistakes like the proper and Raskin mistake for the second goal. They can do that. Also, it's a difficult going man for man against. We've seen teams do that. By the way, I'm not saying it's the same game, but the Celtic semi-final again, the Scottish Cup last year against Aberdeen was a very similar kind of game. That Aberdeen matched up man for man, and they tried to turn it over, and they forced Celtic and they scored 3 goals. They scored like very similar kind of game, and I don't want to patronising Rangers fans going, they're back, they're good, they're on a level footing with Celtic. They're not. There's still problems in that team. They played well enough at Hampden. I still think there's work to be done. I still think there's question marks to be asked.
Do you know what, Mick? It's a really interesting
That's like a
point.
away European performance, and it worked then. Would it work? Can they play that way? Can they just hoof the ball up and say, right, so come at us and we'll try and pick you off in our half at Ibrox? I don't think you can play that way at Ibrox.
Interesting point.
It's just a lot going on, I think, at the moment with the way they played. And listen, again, I thought they played limitations of that squad. I thought they played really well. And you've got to credit the manager for getting a tune out of that, having a tactics that worked. Are Rangers fans going to put up with Rangers sitting deep and lump the ball at the park?
What you're essentially accepting there before you go into the game is that we know we're second best, and we're
exactly.
Going to
That's what I'm saying. That can't be the long term.
Yeah.
So basically the plan was, by the way, lump it up. Maybe they get Celtic turn on the diagonal. If not, they get the ball back. Let them come in to the middle of the park and then crowd them out and hopefully get the ball away and we'll turn it over. Which is by the way, what the first half was as good a game plan against Celtic as anyone's worked out this year. But it's hard to sustain it. And when Celtic did click into gear and start breaking the lines, it caused a problem. And like I say, Celtic I thought were maybe 70% of their usual capacity. Rangers were probably more 90 to 100. And that means that there's still a gap, and there has to be another approach found, I think, at some point. So I don't know, but it's interesting.
John in the comment section watching live on YouTube says, Cup finals in every event. Celtic will be back in top gear for the New Year game. Surely Clement won't survive 0 wins in 7. See, looking at both clubs' histories, guys, I don't think there's any manager for either side that has failed to win any of the first 6 derby matches and survived.
I don't think
we're in uncharted territory here.
It's pretty remarkable.
We're in an uncharted territory. I don't know if we can. I took on board everything Michael just said because it's very interesting, and I think tactically he'll need to be a little bit more aggressive and front foot in that game at Ibrox because the supporters will demand it. I also think as well when you look at the way they played against Spurs, and in the last couple of weeks they have. I think the handbrake has come off in terms of the forward play, the variations in the final third. They were so boring and easy to defend against and structured and rigid. And all of a sudden, Hadji's come in. There's a bit of free spirit about the way they're going forward with Igaman and Hadji. And yet they were that his tactical blueprint was quite structured again against Celtic. You wonder if when they go into the January 2nd game, he goes more towards what they have been doing lately, which is, guys, go out there and dominate them.
You could